Hey guys, welcome to the fifth episode of Suits and Sports. And on behalf of Global Sports Policy Review, I would like to welcome our guest for today. She is a football lawyer and she's worked closely with the Court of Arbitration of Sports. She's done over 150 cases there, and currently she's a faculty at Jindal Global University. Our guest for today, Miss Apoorvi Jha. Hi, ma'am. How are you doing today?
Hi Ryan, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good as well. And we're also joined by Subhrajit sir, ma'am's colleague. So hi sir, how are you doing?
You don't
Nice
need
to
to
see you
mention
again,
that.
Subhrajit. Yeah, this is
How are
going
you,
to be a
ma'am?
really informal conversation. I'm doing great, Subhrajit. How are you?
I am also good.
Okay, guys. So ma'am loves sports. She has a very different taste on in when it comes to sports. You know, she has various classifications in terms of sports she likes. So I know ma'am is a really passionate tennis fan. So, ma'am, I want to ask you one thing. When we're in a country in India growing up, you see sports like cricket, maybe football. Those are the prominent sports. So, what made you to start liking tennis and to start playing tennis?
Well, this is a story I've told many people actually. Whoever have asked me this question, there's just one story that one day, I used to actually professionally skate. And then one day I was just sitting at home and then I saw the very first Wimbledon finals where Nadal won instead of Federer's streak of winning Wimbledon. And that was the time when I decided that I should just, quit skating and join in tennis because it just looked like a very fascinating sport. And it's a really technical sport as well at the same point. I mean, it's not like anybody can play. You have to put in a lot of hours. It's a very technical sport. It needs not just your physical strength but a lot of mental strength, so it was very challenging, which is why it was fascinating for me to pick up this sport. Plus individual sport always over team sports when it comes to me personally playing. So yeah.
Well said, ma'am.
Tell me one thing, I want to hear, I want to ask you this thing. It's like we have a formal, informal types of talking here, So I
Hmm.
just want to know, are you lefty? Like mostly people
Me?
who are, yeah, so they
No,
suppose
I'm a
that
right hander.
that's the
No,
reason.
it was
I've seen most of the
it was
cricket fans, Sachin right-hander, sort of left-handed batsman. Mostly follow
hmm,
like that. So
no,
that's the
no,
reason I asked.
no. That has nothing to do with my likings towards Rafa. I mean, I'm a Rafa fan since day one. And just like that, my younger sister is a Federer fan since day one. So we also have a, in-home rivalry happening in between matches every now and then. So that also keeps our home on their feet. Like my dad and my mom, we are all gonna have conversations and good debates on who's better than whom. And finally, when Rafa, matched up the 20 Grand Slam tag with Federer, things just suddenly came in a pause. Otherwise, I used to always be the one being criticized on liking Rafa. So yeah, that has nothing to do with him being a lefty. It's his strength, it's his composure, his respect for sports in general that I really appreciate. I mean, not that I'm saying Federer doesn't respect sports. I mean, of course he does, but I mean, you always have personal favorites where you just cannot explain exactly why you like that person more than the other one. So it's the same with me.
Right, ma'am. I think you're the lucky charm because you said right the first time you watched, he broke Federer's streak, and today he's matched up to Federer's Grand Slam. So,
Well, I believe for me, I mean, I am the lucky one because I also got to meet him in person when he
oh,
came to India. So,
oh,
I
wow.
mean, yeah, despite the fact that I was really badly injured, I just went through Achilles tendon injury and I got my surgery done. I was on a cast. And despite all that, when he came for Davis Cup in Delhi, uh, I somehow got the chance of seeing him at his practice session and then meeting him. He was sweating bad, and despite that he was so nice to me. So yeah, I mean, all these little things make a huge difference.
Wow. Wow, that must be indeed an experience meeting your idol.
Exactly. It was after meeting him, in fact, that things really changed. It was in I think I was in my third year, and it was in my third year after all this happened that I was introduced to sports law. And then I was told by my professor that, you should join ISDE after the graduation, and, you should further study more. She asked me to go for a summer school, which was for the first time organized in collaboration with Jindal. So I went for the summer school and I made good friends in ISDE University, and eventually got admission, and then got a bagged a job in Brazil and one of the top international football, or dare I say sports law firms in the world. So yeah, it was, everything just fell in place some way or the other. Luck plays a huge part when it comes to these things. Not to mention that, of course, I had to work a lot. I had to work 14 hours a day back in Brazil, but it was never tiring because I thoroughly enjoyed the work that I was doing. So, yeah.
Then again, I have a small question for you. Two questions. Just now mentioned sports law faculty when you were in your university, and you mentioned C, not he. Like
Sean Star
how?
wasn't, Professor Sean wasn't there in my third year. We had Professor Weatherly Shaw, who used to teach sports law course that time. Professor Sean Star joined in, I think, when I was in my fourth year. So it was after I already took a course or elective on sports law under Professor Weatherly Shaw. And so I got to become the teaching assistant of Professor Weatherly Shaw in my second semester of third year. And then when Professor Shonstar joined in, after I already graduated, we had this integration collaboration program where kids from Queensland University and faculty from Queensland University, including Michael Kastrovich, former cricketer from Australia, who joined in and came in India. And that's when I ended up, really getting to know Professor Sean. And ever since,
Were
like,
you
we have just, yeah, you were
were you
saying?
there in that same team for India? And because there was a match also happened, right? India and Australia team.
No, I was the cheerleader. I was just clapping for both the teams. I don't know how to play cricket.
But now I have another question for you. Like you were like for a particular period of time you work as a lawyer. Now you are in
Yeah,
academics as an academician. So you have seen the Brazil laws also. That's how the Brazil sports law work, the sports law in Brazil. So what do you think
hmm.
about India? Where we are lacking behind in that case?
Well,
If you compare that with
honestly speaking, I have absolutely no idea of how Brazilian sports law works, because everything is dealt in Portuguese language. So my entire work was solely dedicated to international matters. I used to be the right hand of my boss, my former boss, and just the two of us used to handle. That is why I ended up handling so many cases, because we were just the two of us, and rest of the lawyers team in the firm used to focus their work towards the national bit. But most of the times you would find it very common that countries having sports law systems or arbitration tribunals and all are dealing in their own language, so it's really difficult to even learn the national work. In India, unfortunately, I didn't get to work as much in this area in the legal field, practically speaking, because I only spent 3 months under Nandan Kamat's firm, and that was it. And even at that point, most of the work that was given to me was transactional. It still is. The firm still I believe, deals with transactional work. They do not do litigation. So you deal with contracts, they deal with copyrights, and all these sorts of transactional issues. So honestly, I don't think that I'm even the right person to, talk about Indian judiciary, because I purely worked in international law and then switched my career totally towards academics. and I always wanted to become a teacher. So for me, switching the career was never, I didn't have to think too much, that I already had so much in my plate, that I already had such a booming career in Brazil. Despite that, many people asked why I switched, why did I come back to India? But for me, it wasn't a hard decision. It was never a hard decision, because
I will not
I
say
mean,
why you are coming back to India. I will not say that. I want people, Indian people, to come back to India. So
yeah,
for me, it's
this
because
country needs good lawyers in
you
sports.
know,
I
like
mean,
recently
experienced,
I was
internationally experienced lawyers.
because recently I was going through this and I found out that even the betting, like not that time betting, it's a gambling rule. Gambling rule was something even we had in a Vedic age, but that's
Hmm.
they don't have a law like law. They have to mention it like a slopes. That time slopes was the laws. So yeah, we have seen something in Manusmriti Smriti. We have something like that. It means like we have developed that time. So suddenly
Hmm.
our brain went for drain. So So I need to like
Well,
even I mentioned some of the people also like someone was like, sir, I want to study, then I want to study out, I want to do job outside, then I want to develop India sports. I was like, tell you first for fact, tell you one thing, like you are trying to say you're working for an international organization and you are trying to develop India. Now tell me the concept, being outside, how can you develop the sports law of India from inside? Because obviously we'll be from the outside person. So I just
totally
mentioned that
different.
the people like you, then Nishant himself, then other sports lawyer who are coming back to India. Deep Racer is also they coming back to India. Like yes, I need this. We need to that these are the real people who are now working for development of sports law in India.
Hmm.
Because you people are coming back and you are trying to do something from inside, not for outside. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, but I mean, you also, I mean, whenever such people come to, you should also tell them that, if you want to come back to India and work, just know that after you have finished working outside, when you come back, you will work from the scratch, top, at the right, at the bottom, because everything is different here. If you compare it to the international, how the international sports industry works, it's very different. Although we are developing, I'm really happy with all the changes that AIFF has recently made. They've introduced solidarity and training compensation in their legal documents, and they are trying their best to educate managers, especially scouts and managers in the Indian football industry, to how to deal with these legal issues. But at the same time, see, people are still rigid. you know there has been a certain set of trend that has been followed in India when it comes to sports legal issues. So even when we, as new era of sports lawyers, come back to India, it's really hard for us also to convince them that you need to make some changes. You need to know how the people outside are working, because at the end of the day, a lawyer, especially a lawyer, thinks that he knows best. It's a fact. So convincing that lawyer that you are not entire, you are true, you are right, but you can do better, is itself a big task. So yeah, that's a big challenge for people like us who come back. I also dealt with it, and I believe everybody who would come back would deal with it some way or the other. So yeah.
Well said, ma'am. Thank you. Ma'am, so another question for you is that, ma'am, you worked closely, you literally worked inside the Court of Arbitration of Sports. So could you please give us an insight as to how things go on over there?
See, typically there are two kinds of cases that you can take to Court of Arbitration for Sports. One is ordinary jurisdiction cases that are on first instance can be taken to Court of Arbitration for Sports. And then there are appeal cases. Most of the appeal cases are those wherein CAS is already mentioned as part of the appellant jurisdiction within the International Sports Federation's documents. So if you look into AIFF regulations, at the end, the arbitral tribunal is mentioned as Court of Arbitration for Sports. So not national jurisdictional cases go there. only international jurisdictional cases go there, because then there is a chain of these courts. International transactions first go to FIFA. I'm just giving an example. It's going to be pretty much the same for all other international sports organizations. I'm giving you an example of FIFA because that's where I worked at. So, for example, if there are two parties in a transaction, one is from one country, the other is from another country, prima facie, it's an international jurisdictional case. So that will not reach any national court, but would reach directly FIFA. At the same time, there are certain parties whose international transactions are accepted by FIFA. So player and club transactions, club and club transactions, coach and club transactions go to FIFA. Everybody else can be dealt nationally. So after you go to FIFA, there are two different courts itself, player status committee and then dispute resolution chamber. They all deal with disputes, disciplinary disputes. Majority of the cases that you would find are for unpaid salaries, overdue salaries. Sometimes there are issues with regards to loan transfers. Sometimes there are minor transfers that are although international minor transfers are illegal, there are few exceptions to it. A minor can be transferred within two borders if the proximity of his home to the other country is within 50 miles or something. This makes sense when you're talking about this from Europe's point of view, because the borders are pretty much close to each other. Or sometimes the parents get a job in another country and they have to move in. So that's a completely acceptable transaction to hire a minor from another country. These kind of cases are also then dealt with by FIFA. And after you deal with these at player status committee or dispute resolution chamber of FIFA, at the second instance, you can appeal those cases to CAS. At the same time, when I was talking about coach issues of coach, many a times coaches have these contracts which has straight up court of arbitration for sports as a valid jurisdiction to deal. So for ordinary instances at CAS, these cases go directly there. Appeal cases are where these player club issues go. There is a CAS code that has all the procedural aspects that you have to follow. There is this 21-day deadline. There is one 10-day deadline for answering. I'm not going to get deeper into these intricacies, but you can just find those in the document. And yeah, that's how you follow it. And the written documents are just like how international arbitration works. So the written pleadings are drafted in the same way. You just have to make sure that the parties' names are mentioned clearly, make sure that the address is there. All these are again mentioned in the CAS code. So you can just read through it and you would be able to take a case to CAS. And so at the end of the day, it's dealing with sports issues and taking them to CAS isn't that difficult. But since sports law is a very closed, small industry, knowing people on the inside who would be able to give you that push is a task, is a challenge for new budding lawyers, aspiring sports lawyers.
Wow, well said, ma'am. I think that's really, I think whoever's watching this will also like get a proper insight, because we've all heard of the CAS, but then in terms of how a lot of procedures happen, I'm pretty sure it's not even Indian law schools. I don't think many places they would particularly explain it to us as to how things go on like this. So thank you for that.
Ryan, if you say about the Indian law school, in that case, I will mention one thing. Even I think Apoorvi ma'am will be also supporting with this case. How many colleges in Indian law school have sports law? I can count in my I count actually only in my this finger. Only in my this finger there will be this finger only you can find these 4 lines. You complete in the 4 lines. If I mention about the sports law, even out of them, proper degree of sports law you will find very rare.
It's true.
JNLU diploma, Jindal trying means they have a course of sports law. Even I think in masters they have that, even optional you have that. So basically for a degree say Jindal have that also only, but rest of that, like there is one in Bhopal Jagaran Lake University, a professor there, he's trying, that's also optional. Generally, I mentioned diploma, and one you will find in National Law School Assam. But for National Law School Assam, they don't have that type of degree, but they have some journals and blogs and journals. So they are also trying to develop. See, but I told you, just in my small finger, I can mention how many colleges there in who are just trying to develop schools. That's the thing.
Yeah, when you mentioned it, I think it's also important to highlight that recently there was, I'm not gonna name anybody, but recently there was an authority from Sports Authority of India, who contacted me and was willing to, pitch this idea of introducing sports law as one of the important courses for the players to do and their managers to do inside. But I have no idea of its updates, if he was able to convince the people inside of its importance. But he did ask me to write down a document stating its important pointers, why you should as a person know international sports law, why it is important to know how to deal with these intricacies, especially when it comes to contracts as agents and managers. Right now I have no idea on its update, but this was something that was at least pointed out and recognized by people on the inside of Sai. So I have no idea how it's going to go. I really do hope that people understand its importance, that sports law is an important subject. I understand that many of its branches are connected with other areas of law, like IPR, like contract law. But at the same time, sports in itself is also a topic in itself to be learned.
In that case, like I have mentioned one thing, like as you know, my mom used to play cricket for state level. So once in the meeting of the state level, like it was some ex-players they were meeting. So my mom said my son is going to go for sports law. And same thing, like one of the authority, he was manager for Indian team. I'm telling you, he was a manager for Indian team. And being a lawyer is asking me, sports law, what is that? ये तो मैं पहली बार सुन रहा I'm like I'm listening this for first time. I know what sports management, sports law. Introduce what is sports law. Then I mentioned him, like I tried to mention him just like you mentioned, like, but he was like not in that state to accept that thing. Then I mentioned him, like, see, once upon a time you fought a case for our Indian team captain, but the reason it happened, like, see, it happened like the ICC appointed some lawyer. There was a sports lawyer, and you were a civil lawyer from a XYZ High Court, and you tried to defend him. So obviously, the ICC bought a cardiologist, in a doctor language. They bought a cardiologist, and you are a psychiatrist. Now you are trying to help a patient, heart patient. So obviously, you can understand the result. So I am trying to becoming that cardiologist. So that is sports law. I tell you in the shop that is sports law, and this is normal law. So this is the difference. So okay. And I know he haven't got anything, but so he was okay. I understand.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, India.
forget about just the disciplinary aspects of sports, but imagine anti-doping. We are the third worst country in the world with most doping cases. It's no joke why we are. I mean, because we barely have literally a handful of people who are doing pro bono cases and representing these players at WADA level, World Anti-Doping Agency. And that is because first, players do not have money to hire international lawyers. I mean, you are always gonna be representing yourself because you do have an option to do it. Of course, WADA gives you this, financial leeway and might also give you the a lawyer to represent you. But I mean, it just can't be the incompetency of Indian lawyers, right? Why there are so many cases lost at WADA. So there is this set image of Indian athletes when it, at least in WADA's eyes, I believe that most of the cases that go there, for sure are gonna be lost. And I mean, eventually it's just disheartening because first off, strict liability is implied. And so, Bridget, you know how difficult strict liability is to prove otherwise. So it's a very technical issue. It's a very technical aspect of sports law, very scientific also at the same time. So which is why we do need sports law. It's not just that you are taking cases to CAS, but it's WADA, which also is a very big influence when it comes to Indian athletes' lifespan. Anyways, it's very small. Athletes' lifespan is so small, and then the life ban or the bans in general. I mean, just because you were caught with something in your blood, it doesn't even matter if you did it yourself or somebody else in your team did it or somebody else provoked you to do it. You would be at least banned for 3 years because of the strict liability. I mean, 3 years for a athlete's career, it's pretty much it, right? It's so small. I mean, from a tennis player's point of view, also I can tell you that in general, surviving as a junior player was almost next to impossible because it's an expensive sport. And the sponsors who come and sponsor are also going to sponsor you for your equipments and your apparel. But what about traveling? What about living expenses outside? You only get points as a tennis player if you travel and you play as many matches as you can. And we do lack a lot of resources when it comes to development of these sports. There are many issues when it comes to these, and only when you know sports law and you love sports in general and you understand the Indian sports culture would you be able to succeed and make good out of it. And I sure do hope that we do have many lawyers, enthusiasts, sports enthusiasts who would just join in and fix this issue. But we need proactive people on the inside as well in these sports organizations. I can't pinpoint people, but I mean, we can develop and we can fix ourselves.
I was talking to a cricketer named Shrival Kaushik. So when I told him also, I'm not qualified enough to give an elaborate thing on sports law. But when I told him the slight bit of the concept, he was telling that in today's world, a lot of athletes, when they get contracts, so he was giving an example of when he signed with Puma. He was just saying none of them go through the entire agreement. They just go sign. And which is why a lot of them, like he's telling, especially in the lower level, a lot of them get into trouble and they don't even get the right kind of representation and their career is gone. So I think in that regard, it's very important that like you said, the players also should get a good education, like a slight bit of education in terms of law, and they should get good representation.
See, Ryan, if you're mentioning about the contract, I think ma'am will also in this case. See, even in the case of NADA, just now ma'am mentioned, this type of cases, even like, see, the basic athletes who are coming from like a village area, from the local area, they even does not know when they're practicing, they even does not know whether the supplement which they are using, even that contains something substance which may be banned from by WADA. And without knowing that they're having it, now again they have a blood test, then what are saying like you have a sample in your blood without knowing. That is also one of the, even like in UK, I think ma'am also knows, in UK they have a website, right? Even not only UK, full over Europe they have a website by WADA which mention which substances are there which you should not be taking. But India will not find anything like that.
In India, you have to refer to those websites. You should know which link to open, first of all. And plus, I mean, of course, I mean, don't you remember Sharapova case? How much hype it got? I mean, that Sharapova should have looked into the prohibited list, which was given to all the international pro athletes by WADA in the month of January, la 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 la. But I mean, nobody is going to talk about all these little things when it comes to, small level athletes. Not small level athletes, but people who are coming from small villages who have absolute no idea of how to even deal with these technologies in general. Some of the kids who are playing great, doing great internationally wouldn't even know how to speak proper English. So how would they open this website and understand? And yes, it's true. I mean, if I am a professional athlete and if I have a coach who has been with me my entire life, and he has given me some substance to take, saying that it's for your good health. I'll take it. I'm not going to question him. And all these things are told by WADA. WADA tells you that as an athlete, you are supposed to know all these things. But I mean, spreading awareness is one thing, educating about it is another.
I
Eight
think
and
a
a
lot
half
of them
minutes.
also, yeah, a lot of them also fall to the trap, like where, like they just want to get back from their injuries or so. So they accidentally end up consuming something which they were not aware of, and then they get caught doping, right?
Yeah, it happens. There are so many, you can think of n number of situations where an athlete unknowingly would get into all this. And because of strict liability, he would be just banned accordingly. So,
Right. No,
yeah,
the
I
other day my
mean,
mom was making a kind of syrup because I had cough. So, and it was, she put something, and also I was telling her that, you people make stuff like this, give it to athletes, and I'm pretty sure things like this get them into trouble because they put some herbal things and all that, and you don't know what's legal and what's illegal.
and then no, and then there are other issues also, like Gasket, the tennis player, ended up kissing a girl who was already under influence of cocaine and then got tested of cocaine. Now this also happens, but I mean, thankfully for all these things, there are, he got off. He didn't get banned or he didn't get any punishment for it because he was able to prove it. The girl was able to, give her statement that yeah, it was me who consumed it. He was partying with me last night and this happened. But I mean, how many what are the odds of having somebody to support your statement as an alimony?
In this case, like, have you heard of that thing also? Like in the Olympic, Winter Olympic, one
Hmm.
British athlete, I'm forgetting his name. He went to play for US, and he was a habit of taking Vicks inhaler, and he got a sample in his blood. Then it came to know like the substance which you found in the Vicks in US is not the same substance you will found in Vicks in UK. So they have the US Vicks as the substance which will be known as sample, which will be caught in your sample. So then after that, Vicks came to know, okay, we have to ban this substance now. So yeah, even without knowing also, yeah, it's happened.
It happens. It's very common.
Who would have thought of Vicks out of each and everything?
True.
Okay. Guys, so we're running out of time, so which is why, Subhrajit sir, would you like to give ma'am an informal vote of thanks?
First of all, like we are colleagues, so we meet each and every time. Okay, so it will be better for Ryan. It's better if you give the vote of thanks than me because again we will meet after I think 3 days on. No, 10 days
Yeah, yeah.
maybe 14 days.
On second we meet again.
Yeah, it will again meet with again. I will give my vote of thanks there also only.
That's
All right,
fine.
then. So, on behalf of Global Sports Policy Review, I would firstly like to thank Subhrajit sir for this opportunity to give the vote of thanks. And on behalf of Global Sports Policy Review, I would like to thank Apoorvi ma'am for accepting our request and taking time of a busy schedule. Because, ma'am, honestly, whatever you said today, it was really insightful. It was really, I'm pretty sure it's really helpful. It was really informative to a lot of aspiring sports lawyers. And I'm pretty sure it's knowledge to a lot of lawyers as well. So thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Would you like to say a few words before we close?
No, but I'm just gonna say thanks to GSPR for having me on board, and I hope that we just build our relationship stronger every day. And thank you so much for giving me this platform so that I could tell all this that I had. Otherwise, usually whenever people do these kind of talks, they already have a set of, you know, questions already sent across. But this was, as you mentioned earlier, was a rather informal conversation, which is why I was able to open up as much, I believe. So thank you so much, Subhrajit, especially Subhrajit, for having me. And Ryan, you are a delight today. So thanks.
Maybe after after this.
So we can't hear you. You
I
froze.
think, yeah, he froze. It's all right. We still have
Yeah, it's all
almost
right.
3 minutes.
Yeah, 3 minutes. We still have time, so hopefully Subhrajit sir revive
Yeah,
himself. And
yeah, maybe. But yeah,
yes, ma'am. So before we close, a question out of the blue, hoping Subhrajit sir comes back soon. Who do you just pick one player? I mean, one. Just choose one of them. I'm going to give you two options. Who do you prefer, Michael Schumacher or Lewis Hamilton?
seriously.
I'm
It's
sorry
gonna
for
be
putting you in this.
Hamilton. I mean, it's gonna be
Oh.
Hamilton right now. I mean, come on, look at his record. It's like I was just speaking about this with my friends a couple of days back.
Mhm.
That I mean, the number of records that this guy is setting. Who else in the near future gonna come and break all this? It's gonna be like this for so many years now. He and I
True,
mean,
true, true.
yes, sometimes car do make a difference, but come on, it cannot just be the car. If you look at this guy's performance, especially the last Grand Prix, his start was bad.
Yeah.
He ended up coming second, and
Mhm.
then he just at the end changed his pit strategy,
Mhm.
entered the pit way before Verstappen the second
Yeah.
time, and then everything just fell in place.
Mhm.
So I mean, it just can't be the car, right?
Right,
But
right. Definitely.
otherwise, you should know. Otherwise, you should know that I personally support Daniel Ricciardo and Carlos Sainz,
Thanks.
because I really like their sporting spirit. They're funny and everything. And I mean, Hamilton is the best. He's literally the goat of for F1. So you can't beat it. But I mean, you gotta have your own personal interests also, right? So for
Definitely.
me, it's
Definitely.
them.
Yes, sir. That was a filler waiting for you, sir. We're waiting for you to conclude.
So I was just saying maybe like after pandemic get over, then I will make this thing like open session, maybe in some like like a cafe, like Rockstar, like some cafe or someone like that. But maybe we will not get a guest like some cricketers, which happened. We have seen in
We can
telecast
totally
also
do
some
that.
cricket.
That can totally be done. That's gonna be interesting, huh?
All right,
So I will
guys.
try.
So this is GS Global Sports Policy Review signing off. So guys, say peace as I stop recording. Stay safe,
Peace.
guys.